What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another fun, extra special, extra unique, just amazing episode of the Tim Macy Show because by popular demand, I've gotten so many DMs from all the listeners, all three of you, that you want to hear from Katie Day. I feel like most people that subscribe to the podcast thought Katie was on it the whole time and just realized it was just me. Nobody likes just me. Everybody's always looking for me and Katie because Katie's much more interesting than I am. So, without further ado, welcome to the show, Katie Day.
Thank you for finally having me. I was getting a little bit worried that I was never going to be invited. So I'm just really thrilled to be here. We can end it now. I just wanted to say that I was on the Tim Macy show. So I'm just thrilled to have gotten the invite. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. You know what's funny is we have a lot of people, they come into our events, they just come into our lives in one way or another. And I feel like some people get taken aback a little bit by how much we give each other a hard time. But I feel like in our little group, giving each other a hard time is our love language, and that's how we show affection is by trying to constantly pull each other down a notch or two.
Well, no, I was being completely sincere and that I was just like, I was waiting for my invitation and wondering if I was ever going to get one. And now I'm here. So I can say that I've been on the Tim Macy show. So I'm just thrilled and honored, man.
I could tell. I could tell. And look, we have a lot of stuff. We're working on Video Blueprint for 2024,
Yep.
which I think is going to be an awesome event. We do a lot of stuff together as we're building out Real and doing events for agents, whether they be on Zoom or in person. And like we've been able to work a lot with each other on doing things for agents. But what I want to do is actually maybe talk about things we haven't talked about a lot because we talk all the time about the things that we're doing in the future, but we rarely kind of like catch up on the past and like how Katie Day got to where she is today. Because everybody knows me as one of the first agents to go join Real, but you actually joined way before any of us. So tell me that story.
Oh, it's funny that we're gonna talk about this because this is something that, like, I don't talk about very, very frequently. It's one of those stories that, like, it's just easier to tell my real estate history and be like, "Yeah, I was at Coldwell Banker for almost 5 years, and then I went to Real." And they're like, "Oh, that's cool, like, you're an early adopter." I'm like, "You're right, I am." And that's kind of where the conversation ends. But I actually got my real estate license in 2015, and for those couple months in 2015 and the entirety of 2016, I was a part-time-ish agent. I was doing it full-time, but, like, I wasn't. I had, like, a contract gig, I was doing a lot of different stuff, I wasn't all in on real estate, and so I was looking for the brokerage with the best commission splits because my thought was, if here in Texas, I'm doing, like, apartment locating and home locating and rental locating, I don't need, like, training, I don't need an office, I don't need all of this infrastructure. So I'm just gonna go find a brokerage that has really good splits, and I don't know if it was Craigslist or a Facebook ad or what, but I found Real, and I signed up. It was funny at Rise, they were talking about how Jason Lopez has always been here and done the trainings and things like that. Like, the training back then was Jason Lopez on Facebook Live for the Real Facebook page, and that was, like, all that they had for training. So, yeah, that was back 2015, 2016. I was here for, basically a year, and then I left to go to Coldwell Banker.
I love that. I love that. So the OG Real agent is actually Katie Day,
Yeah.
and I love that. I will give Katie a hard time all the time, but now that we're in front of other people, I can say that you have just grown a business that I think a lot of people admire. And I hear this all the time. People love watching you on social media. They love what you've built. They see this great business, they see all this great content, and they look up to you, they're inspired by you, all of the things. But what I want to know is going back, like, what were those things when you were getting started that kind of got you to where you're at today? So, as other agents progress in their business, a lot of them end up sitting as just that normal agent, and you've done something. There was something along the way that helped you get traction to become kind of what you are and where you are today. Like, if you could boil it down to a couple things, what would it be?
That's a good question. It's tough because I feel like you just do things, right? Like, you just take action. So I think for me, one of the biggest things was in the beginning, I knew that I needed to be on social media. What that looked like back in 2017 when I first went full time versus, now in 2013, 2014 is completely different, right? But I knew that I needed to have some sort of online presence. So back then it was Facebook Lives and then it was static posts of like just listed, just sold. And I still have the templates in my Photoshop folder on my computer that I haven't touched in like 5 years. But I knew that I needed to stay top of mind. I knew that doing things online and doing video and showcasing listings and showcasing living in Houston was important. And I just think that it's evolved over time. So I think that it isn't any secret sauce or it isn't any like specific formula or blueprint, if you will. But for me, it was really just like, okay, I need to do these things and need to take action on them and just show up. And I think that as I did it more frequently, or if I were to take a break, people would be like, "Oh, was it a slow week this week?" And I was like, "No, I was slammed. Why?" They're like, "Oh, well, I didn't see any just sold posts from you." And I'm like, "Okay, today I would never do that." But like, it was those things that just doing them over time and having conversations with people, having conversations with my friends, having conversations with consumers, I realized that I just need to continue to do. So I would say pick what your thing is and then just continue to execute on it and continue to improve upon it. Most people, if they haven't started yet, they don't want to because they're like, oh, well, my stuff is going to suck compared to everyone else's. But like, you've got to have those sucky videos. You've got to have those terrible posts. And as time goes on, you'll improve them and continue to execute.
Well, I love when you said compared to everyone else. I think that's probably one of the biggest negative things that people do is that comparison because we get caught up so much in realtor world and we're trying to make all of our stuff look like Katie's stuff when you have to remember the consumer that you're trying to reach likely is not following Katie unless they're in Houston. So you are letting this false thing in your head that everything that you do needs to be as good as these other people you see in the industry. And the way the algorithm works is you tend to only see the best people, right? Because the best real estate content gets put in your face. When in actuality, the consumer just needs you to show up as you are in whatever state that is or whatever quality that is. They just need you to show up. And so, how do you deal with not getting caught up in that comparison game?
Well, it's funny that you asked that question because I had like a sub point to what you were just saying. And we were both in a mastermind with Layla Hermosi this past week. And someone asked, what would be your tips on like building a personal brand and what should we do to like really just like, level it up and just crush like you do? And she started talking about content. And one of the things that she was saying was that she actually doesn't consume content because it doesn't put her into the right headspace to then create content. And so that was something that really resonated with me because I do it all the time. And we've got friends like Chris Benjamin and, Shane Bergman and, Dan McKinnon and these people that are like super creative, Derek, Gregory and all these people that are super creative. And I watch it. I'm like, I wish I could be creative like they are. And then I like after I'm in this funk for a little while, I'm like, I'm not that person. I'm not the one to do skits. That's not me, right? Like it's not my personality and like it works for them and people love it and it's fun, but like that's just not my style. And so she said something that really like resonated with me and that was basically like you need to do content that you enjoy making and you need to do content that your customers and your consumers and your people would enjoy watching and is valuable to them. Right. And if you can focus in on that, then your content you'll enjoy it a lot more. It'll be higher quality and things like that. Like if I went to go do a skit, it would be terrible. It's not my style. So looking at other people's stuff and trying to compare to them is just it's a losing game. I think the other thing that really resonated with me that she said was also doing content that's sustainable, right? So like she's like, we don't go shoot hundreds of short form videos. She's like, we do podcasts, we're on podcasts, we do long form content, and then it gets chopped up and that's our content. Like our content isn't something that we're making all of these short. She's like, we would die if we, they're putting out like 300 pieces of content a week. So yeah, I mean, just it's easier said than done, but try to put the blinders on and focus in on your stuff.
I love that. So one Hormozi's talk was one of the best talks I think I've heard, and I'm a pretty big Hormozi fan, and I was worried I was just going to get the same stuff that I've heard on the podcast and read in his book a bunch of times.
Yeah.
But the fact he had some brand new, all new stuff was pretty awesome. And then we had that lunch, which was really great with Layla up there. And obviously, though, we can't not talk about the fact that our friend Bob Tompkins dressed up to look exactly like Alex Hormozi, and we were sitting. It wasn't a big room; it was a couple tables, not a big room. and she's up like because that she was up on this awkward stage in this
It was
small
like a very
room. It's like
rectangle room too. It'd be better if it was a square, but it's like rectangle and it was like a bunch of circle tables. So yeah,
yeah, it was just a room with a stage. There shouldn't have been a stage. She should have just been like the same level. So she was awkwardly above us, and then
in all
she keeps
ways.
getting right. She keeps getting messed up because Bob keeps catching her off guard. Just like the fact that he's sitting there looking exactly like her husband. It was a really funny moment, and we are gonna have Bob on the podcast. We just sent him the invite, and I was gonna have this going thing where we interviewed everyone but Bob, and I thought that would be funny. But at the end of the day, I'm just like, yo, Bob's too good of a dude. He's got too much stuff to share, and so we are gonna have him on the podcast. But back to my
I'm
point.
grateful that you had
Uh,
me on before Bob, because if you would have asked me after, I probably would have said no.
Also had you on before Brad,
Well, you've probably asked Brad 42 times and he keeps saying
and he's
yes, but he
just
hasn't actually committed to a day and time. I'm not going to pretend like you love me more than Brad. It's fine, but just let's move on. What was your point you were going to make?
that is exactly how our friendship goes. So Layla was up there, and one of the things that I noted when she was talking about content was she said, "Look, we like you said, we don't consume a lot of content, so we don't get distracted by what other people are doing." And she said, "We also make content for our audience, not for views."
Yeah,
She specifically said, "We make content to add value to our audience because we feel like we have something that they would get value from, and we don't focus on the views." And for me, that's what hit home because we've had so many agents go viral on something and get a ton of views on something that hasn't actually generated them transactions in business. And so for me, that really hit home because it's so easy to get caught up in how many views, how many likes, all the other stuff, instead of just focusing on how do I add more value to my audience.
100%.
So when I do a podcast, I usually don't have questions prepared. I know that's going to surprise you.
Really?
Yeah, no, but I mean, I just like to take the conversation and see where it goes. And the place that's on my mind right now is the fact that you mentioned you had those Photoshop templates that you used to use that said just sold on them. And then you said something interesting, which is I don't do that anymore. Like you slipped it in there subtly. And here's what I want to dig into. Most of us are looking for a playbook. We're looking for a playbook that says, "Oh, if I do A, B, and C every day for the rest of my career, I will be successful." Like I just want something simple, something easy. But marketing is not simple or easy. It's constantly changing. And what you do is constantly changing. And so I guess what my question is, for agents, how do they stay up with things? How do they keep an open mind to be able to pivot their content and move with it to make sure it stays effective?
The just listed, just sold posts, realistically, like I could still be doing those and those would be social proof. Like, I could still post those every time we sell a home, every time we list a home, and I mean, we do have some of that on our pages, right? And people, would see it and maybe they would reach out, right? But I think over time, when things evolve and things change, you just have to continue to layer on additional things into your content, right? And so it may be scrapping something and doing something new, but often it's just continuing to add more content into or a new bucket or a new pillar into your content mix. I forget what your original question was, Tim.
Well,
Sometimes when you talk, I stop listening, and I think I did that when you asked your question, and then I started talking.
Unlikely.
Yeah,
Like that's what makes you a very difficult podcast guest
I
because I
know.
know you
Did
don't
you
like to
did you
listen to me.
did I answer your question?
Vaguely,
Not
yeah.
really.
Oh no, I mean I like to ask the question, then you
And
give
then
an
you
answer, then I give a better answer, and then we keep rolling on to the
okay.
next one.
Yeah, this is really
So
I understand now why it's the Tim Macy show. I get it. Tim's like, "I just wanna have people on so I can talk at other people," but
yeah.
then it seems no. What was the original question?
So how do you keep pivoting? Because like the content that you put out when you first got started is not the same stuff you're
Yeah.
doing today. But the stuff you were doing was working when you were doing it. And so how do you stay open to like pivoting and how do you stay up on all this stuff? Because it seems like it's just tiring to keep up with it. Like what advice do you give to agents to make sure they're not getting stale with their audience?
Yeah, it's super difficult, and so part of it is the consumption of content. I see things that I like, but often that's not in the real estate space, right? Like, it's the watching the Hermoses of the world or watching people in other industries and seeing that, and then how can I adjust that to be more real estate related, right? Like Brad always talks about this with YouTube. He didn't look to see what other realtors were doing. He was looking to see what these like YouTubers and storytellers were doing to kind of mimic that. And so I've recently started shooting content with other people doing similar stuff to this where we're live shooting with mics, having conversations about things, right? I'm working with my videographer on like different ways that we can do the similar talking head style stuff, educational style stuff that I already do, but maybe in a different way, right? Because like now when I log on again, like I'm in my realtor bubble, but when I see like every realtor I know shooting content sitting in a chair, I'm like, okay, I've got to like now got to start walking around. Now I've got to go do something else. And while not every consumer follows, 1,000 realtors like I do, it's something where I'm like, okay, now if everyone's doing this, like, what's the next thing to be able to push the needle, move the needle forward, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so, again, like I try to find stuff outside of the real estate industry that resonates with me that I can kind of put my own spin on. And then it's just like, I think adding on more stuff, like I'm not going to stop what I'm doing and just completely scrap everything because it's working, right? But I'm just going to continue to add more things. And I think as you put in more reps, things just naturally evolve over time. Like if you are committed to, in this case, content and committed to doing video content, then like if you're shooting 40 videos a month or 50 videos a month, like over time, it's just going to get better. You're going to get more concise in what you're talking about. You're going to figure out better hooks. You're going to figure out the topics that resonate with your audience and things like that over time. And it just, the progression is natural.
I love some of the stuff Dan Parker's doing. I've watched a couple of the reels that he's put out, and he's talking in the car to start. But then, and I'm sure this is a lot more work on the back end, but he's got a lot more engaging graphics on the topic he's talking about instead of just having subtitles and
Yeah.
like emojis popping up. And so I really love that. But I think the thing you're getting at is standing out in the feed. Like you have to know when your stuff is stale and boring and it's no longer standing out in the feed. And it has to stand out in the feed to get consumption. And if you can get consumption, then you need to have something that connects with the audience. And so how do you stand out in the feed? And then after you've stood out, which I guess we would call the hook, how do you connect? Like how do you connect with your audience? I think about man, I'm gonna get weird for a
All
second.
right.
I
You weren't
think about
already?
marriage. I know. I think about marriage. I think about the fact that my wife and I have a good marriage. And the thing is, if I just said, "Hey, this works. I'll keep doing the same thing for here on out for the next however many years we got left," like that would get stale and boring. Like I have to constantly be pursuing my wife. Like I have to constantly be getting to know her better, even though we've been married 13 years. Like it's that constant pursuit of deeper, better connection.
Yeah.
And it's the same way you have to treat your audience. Like you can't just take your audience for granted the same way you can't take your spouse for granted. You have to be thinking about, okay, what does my audience want? Like how do I add value to them? And it's true though, like so many times we put out content, like is the content you're putting out adding value to you, or is the content you're putting out adding value to your audience? And that's where I see most people go wrong.
Yeah.
You're supposed to pontificate.
No, that was a really good point. You're very smart. I appreciate you a lot. And
Listen, I don't know if people think this is weird or funny, but this is really funny to me.
no, I would agree with you. I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to say next, but you're very smart. I do have a question though, as far as, you like progressing in your marriage and things like that, like is the facial hair part of you trying to have a better relationship with your wife?
No, but it's all about trying new things. Facial hair has always been awful for me,
Yeah,
but you
okay.
know what? I'm going to try it. I'm
Yeah,
going to try it. It doesn't matter if I'm bad at it. It doesn't matter if it's repulsive.
okay.
I've got to try it,
Alright.
you
As
know?
long as we're on the same page with the
Same page.
repulsiveness.
Same page, same chapter, anecdotes at the bottom, the
Yeah.
whole deal.
Okay. Cool.
So the pursuit of content is honestly like how much time do we spend in this? We spend so much of our time in this as something that we look to train agents on and everything else. And a lot of times we're looking outwardly, at least I am. I'm looking for what's working with agents. What content are they doing that's working? Why is it working? Is it replicatable by other people? That's the other thing. Sometimes you'll see agents do things like Brad will make some crazy listing video of some beautiful house, and I'm like, how replicatable is this, or is Brad just a unicorn? And we look at all that stuff. I want to know, in your journey, again, I'm digging in on Katie Day. How have you done that? Because you kind of touched on it, where you realize that you're not gonna do the Chris Benjamin funny skits. You're not gonna dance in front of the thing like Ed Stulak. How have you found your way that works?
I found my way just through reps. Basically, when I look at my content journey and when I look at like short form content and talking head style content, I started doing it in November of 2020. And it was basically after seeing like Zach Faust and Glenda Baker and all of these people like do really well with short form content. It garnered them a lot of views, a lot of interest, a lot of business and then referral opportunities and things like that. And so, if you know Zach and you know Glenda, their personalities are both far different from mine. Neil Dingra was another one that really took off in popularity. And I remember Jason Pantana said to me, he's like, "You're never going to be Glenda. You're never going to be Zach." He's like, "You may be somewhat like a Neil Dingra, but like, you've got to figure out what's going to work for you." And so, for the first time I ever did a short form content batch day, like I did the like looking off the camera like a Glenda thing. And when I got back the, like, 49 videos from Andy, my video guy, I was like, "Good job on the edits, but, like, these are terrible." He's like, "Yeah, you need to look directly in the camera and you need to talk." So I was like, "Okay, like, I can't do what someone else is doing." So the next time I then looked directly into the camera and I talked, right? And I was probably just reading vocab words at that point, right? I wasn't giving any opinion, I wasn't giving anything. And so, like, every single time I shot, whether it was something on the edits, right? Or it was something on how I said things, or it was something on whatever, I just continued to adjust and change. But like my commitment was, okay, I'm going to pay this videographer thousands of dollars, right? And I'm going to do it. And I'll continue to improve over time. Like I still have videos I've never posted. I still have videos I probably will never post. But like I was committed to every month shooting between 20 and 50 videos so that I would have more content for the next month. And I think where most people drop the ball is like they'll do it once or they'll do it on their phone for 30 days or whatever it may be, and then they never continue to improve.
I love the push-up analogy. That's, like, my favorite thing, because I think that you can get a book about how to do push-ups. You can buy the nicest, perfect push-up equipment. You can go to Lululemon, which we do often, and spend too much money on great workout clothes. You can get a coach to tell you all the greatest tactics about doing push-ups, and you could be the most prepared person in the world to start your push-up journey, and you will get your ass kicked by someone who didn't know how to do them perfectly, who didn't watch all the videos, who didn't buy the perfect equipment. They just did it. They just did push-ups more than you did, and guess what? They're better at them. And so that's the thing. It's like, get the nice camera, you can hire the best videographer, you can do all the things. You will never make up for someone who just goes out and does it.
Well, and frankly, like as far as content goes, my content journey started with me doing Facebook Lives on every single new listing because I had to go walk the listings anyways, right? I had to go visit the properties. And so if it was a vacant home, I would put my phone on a tripod connected to a long ass microphone. This was before like Bluetooth mics were like popular or I don't know. I was just stupid. And it would be this like 3 foot long thing. And I would put it on the breakfast bar of the house and like, walk away, right? And like then I would be like, "All right, guys, we're da 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 da," and I would do those every single listing. And like the year, like the 2017, 2018 was the year that like I really started to sell a decent amount of real estate. So I probably did like 50 videos that year or something. And like they were terrible. I look back at them now. I'm like looking back at like the address on the house to be like, "Oh yeah, we're at 3210 Main Street here." Like I didn't know what I was doing, right? But I got those reps in. I feel like a lot of people now, as you said, they want the camera, they want the videographer, they want all of these things. Like you need to put in some reps on your own, whether that's Instagram stories, whether that's talking directly to the camera in your car, in your office, at your desk, wherever it may be. Because like if you buy the camera, chances are you're not going to know how to use it. Tim and I both use this like plug and play Sony camera because literally you plug the USB into your computer and it works, right? If you hire a videographer and you're not comfortable talking to camera, you're just going to be super awkward and it's going to be a waste of money. So like getting the reps in on your own for a little while is I think the best thing to do to get started. And then as you feel comfortable, maybe then you hire the videographer. Maybe then you buy a nice lens for your phone or you buy a camera or something like that. But like I've owned every piece of equipment. I know you have too that, like, sits in the closet and you just shoot with your phone, right, and, like, edit it in CapCut, so
Yeah, I think the other thing that is interesting too is that you can make a video if you're just starting out in the journey, you can make a video that's just as good as one that Katie puts out. That is like Katie puts out a video and it's a 9 out of 10. You put out the exact same video, exact same thing. It's 9 out of 10. It's not going to do as well as Katie's, and the reason is because not only do you have to put the reps in to get better, you have to put the reps in to get the result. Like this is a long-term repetition game. You have to just put out more video. And by waiting until it's perfect and like waiting until it's all good, like you're only hurting yourself, right? Because this is all audience that you're missing out on time-wise, that you aren't getting the same result. And so I don't look, I don't know. If you're part of the audience that's putting out a lot of content and you're already doing the thing, I would encourage you to level up your engagement. Like how do you connect with your audience better with the content that you're making? But I think for a lot of people, they're lacking consistency or they're not putting out the amount of content that they should, or they're not putting out any content. And so that's also a thing. And if you're on that fence, if you're sitting on the hey, I want to put out more content fence, that's the one where I'm telling you, like time is killing you.
yeah,
By not
yeah.
starting sooner, like every day you don't start, you're just hurting yourself.
We always say don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10 or chapter 20 or whatever, but every day that you wait, that chapter 2 gets
Yeah,
further and further is it farther? Further away than
further,
it
I'll
was
take
today.
further.
It's
Yeah.
it's more far away than it is today. It's Mr. Beast, I think, that says you should start out and put out 100 shitty videos, right? Like on
Yeah.
YouTube, or you should do 100 videos and they're gonna suck, but you're gonna be way better at making video than you were 100 videos ago. That's the mindset that I think a lot of people are too afraid to embrace. Also, if you're interested in making content and you're this far into this podcast and listening to us, like how are you not making content? This is like one of when Tim and I get together, this is one of the main things we talk about. So,
I will say though, I think we're going into a time like Tom came to our conference last year and just said, "Hey, you're worrying too much about video. Like you need to worry about making your calls and all the other things." Which look, I don't disagree with, but I do know that when it comes to content, a lot of people come up with the time excuse. The time excuse is a big one, and I'm sure there's people listening to it right now. They're like, that all sounds great, but I don't have enough time. And here's my deal. Like my perspective, obviously, I'm very pro content. I'm very pro attraction business, like build the business that attracts people into it. Not as much of a prospecting business. I'll say this. I only do that because I'm obsessed with the consumer. Like I'm not obsessed with real estate gurus. I'm obsessed with the consumer. And the more I look at the consumer and I stop listening to the gurus, it's simply how they transact. Every vacation we go on is inspired by Instagram. The things we buy are inspired by the things we see on social media. If I'm going to buy a new camera, I'm not going to go on I will go on the camera's website, but then after that, I'm going to go on YouTube and I'm going to find some people that have reviewed it. Like
yeah.
it's not that you need to put out content because, some guru told you to. You need to put out content because that's how the consumer transacts now. Like that's just how they transact. They find things on social media and it influences their buying decisions. And if you're not on there, some other agent is going to be the one that influences their buying decisions. And so you cannot have the time to, but I can tell you, I think you can't afford not to.
Well, and I also think that it's the point of like you're doing your clients and the people in your networks and the people in your community a disservice if you're not sharing the knowledge that you have with them, right? We always talk about it in regards to prospecting, right? When we're prospecting for expired listings or we're making phone calls to our sphere, like we want consumers to talk to us because I know that the experience is going to be far better than if they were to talk to the agent that sells one home a year for the past 10 years, right? Like we transact more, we know we can provide more
Yeah.
certainty, we know we can get them the results that they need. And like we're doing a disservice if we're not sharing that with the world. So sometimes when you think about it that way, both with
I love
prospecting
that.
and with creating content, sometimes that gives a little bit better of a mindset around it.
Well, I like that mindset because I think I've talked about this before. Like, we're really good at quitting on ourselves.
You
Like,
are,
I'll
yeah.
I'll quit on myself all the time, but I'm not good at quitting on other people. And when you start thinking of it that way, where it's like, hey, it's not about you. It's about the fact that you're a good agent. And if you don't do these actions, if you don't do this stuff, if you don't make this content, if you don't connect to these people, there's a very good chance they're going to go work with an agent that's not as good as you are. And they're going to have a crappier experience. And their family is going to be worse off because you didn't make that content, because you did not connect with them, and because they did not work with you. And when you start approaching it from that angle, it's a different drive.
So speaking of not quitting on other people, do you wanna do a 75 hard together?
No, because that's myself. That's me
Well, no,
quitting on
but, like, we
myself
would
at
do it
23 days
together.
in all the
Y
time.
no?
January 1st. You in?
Sure.
All right. 75 hard is starting January
You heard it
1st.
here first.
If you're in, send me or Katie a DM on the gram. I think Bob Tompkins and Scott Graff are going to jump in on this as well. So there it is. Oh, God, I put it out in public. Ugh.
You've put it out
Ugh.
in public, what, like 5
Ugh.
times, Tim? Like, don't act like
Yeah,
this
but not on the
is
pod. Not on the pod. The pod is my people. You know, like I have a better connection with the pod people. Now this is really going to hold me accountable.
Hi, you said you have 4 subscribers now?
Probably a good 6, I
Okay,
would say.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
If you're a subscriber, just shoot me a DM, like that's like a thumbs up, and I'll know what it means, you know. So, Katie, talking about content, talking about all this other stuff, but you run a great team. And what's fun about running a great real estate team is I don't think you realize it's great because you're just in the crap all the time, and it always feels like there's always new challenges coming up. But I have the wonderful opportunity to talk to team leaders all the time. And I realize that you have your stuff together, I think, a lot better than most. And so when you look at people who want to start a team or maybe have a team, what's your biggest piece of advice to people to kind of get their stuff together?
I appreciate you saying that because it doesn't always feel that way. So I can always use some positive reinforcement. If you're thinking about starting a team or you have one and you feel like you don't have your stuff together, do we not curse on this podcast? Just out of curiosity, is that?
I mean, sure, you could say the
Well,
word.
no, I'm not going to say it now, but I was just curious if this was like a
Were you
rated
going to say
G.
shit?
No, no, I wasn't.
Okay.
I would never use vulgar
Okay.
vocabulary
All
like
right.
that.
Cool. You know, that's what, yeah, I'm so, you're so polite.
So anyways, if you are looking to start a team, this is probably one of the biggest mistakes that I made in the beginning was we didn't have any SOPs. We didn't have anything written down. We had no instructions on how to do anything. And like SOPs is just the fancy word for like how to do things, right? Standard operating procedures. Like so if you were doing an open house, right? Like I would want you to put out signs at least an hour before the open house. I would want you to have them from all directions of the property. You would go inside and turn on all the lights. You would have MLS sheets printed. You would have all of these things done, right? That to you or I are second nature that you just do on a very regular basis. But like you can't expect people that you're bringing into your organization to know how to do those things, right? Or to know how to do them the way that you would want them to be done. And so you have to give very detailed instructions if you want the same results or you want similar results to the results that you would get, right? And so we didn't have any SOPs. Our first hire was an agent. Like I should have hired a TC. I should have hired an admin. But we didn't do that, right? And so we basically were kind of doing the build the plane as we flew it type team, which worked out for the time being. But looking back on it now and knowing what I know now, we would have been far more successful if I would have taken a little bit more time before hiring an agent and doing these things to have at least like, hey, this is how we deal with leads coming in. This is how we deal with doing consultations when a contract, happens, goes under contract and to closing. At least just that, right? And then all of the other stuff can kind of fall into place as things happen, right? But if you're like really good, you would have all of that done now. And like with AI and stuff like that, I think it would be far easier to start a team today than it was back in 2017, 2018 when I started my team. Cause like now you can just plug into Chat GPT that like you're a team leader, you are looking to create SOPs. Please ask me, 10 questions for this specific procedure and then put them in a table when you're done. Right. And like have it pop out to you of like A, B, C, D. This is what that looks like. You can talk into like an Otter AI and say, "Hey, this is what I do from start to finish for this," and it'll give you like written notes of what you just talked about. And like you can do lots of things like that that can better add systems to your business than like writing them down on a piece of paper.
I love that. I think when I talk to great team leaders, they're always talking about things they're doing to improve their team, improve their business, like things they're working on to maximize efficiency and get their agents more productive. When I talk to agents, I think on the other side of the spectrum, a lot of times they're complaining about their agents. When I talk to team leaders that I think maybe aren't doing as well, they tend to be complaining about their agents. And I think that is one of the biggest things is that great team leaders look in the mirror to solve problems and not so great team leaders complain about their people. And I don't know. That's just an observation on my side.
I think that it's hard.
Not to say you can't complain about your agents.
No,
As a
no,
team
I mean,
leader,
we've
I get
we've
it.
we've all
Yeah.
been there, right? Like, and you had a team very briefly, so I mean, I'm sure, if they're
Yeah, but
listening.
I look at, like, as a team leader, I look at most of the shortcomings of my team as my fault.
Yeah.
Like, I had agents that I think I wish they communicated better. I didn't spend a lot of time coaching them on how to communicate better. You know what I mean? Like, I only look at really why I was a bad team leader,
Yeah.
not why they weren't doing great as agents.
It's tough, especially, like, today, in today's market, in 2023, I don't even remember what real estate looked like in 2018 and 2019. Like, I remember grinding, I remember doing whatever it took to get deals done, right? But, like, we didn't have interest rates where they are today. We didn't have, inventory where it was today, and, like, I frankly, like, couldn't give you what, like, a month in the life looked like back then, right? Like, because, like, 2020 and 2021 just completely, like, skewed our view of what real estate looks like, and so it's difficult today, in my opinion, that, you've got people that have different levels of what they think is success. You have people that have different levels of what they want to make and how hard they want to work. And I think one of my frustrations as a team leader is often like, no one wants to work as hard as I want to work, kind of thing, kind of mindset. I hear that a lot from team leaders. But I think that the realization I had a few years ago was like, I have to figure out where you want to be as an agent on my team. Like, so say to him, if you're on my team, it's like, well, how many homes do you want to sell? How much money do you want to make? You know, let's figure out how many, homes and how many units and all that you need to get to that dollar amount. And I'm coaching you to that dollar amount and to those things that you want with that money, right? Like, I can't say, well, you're on my team, so I want you to sell 40 homes. If you only want to sell 20, we're never going to align. And so that's where it's been a tough leadership lesson of, like, trying to figure out, like, what you want and coaching you to that versus, like, if I need 40 homes, then maybe I need to hire 2 agents to get there instead of just 1.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that where I think that's another thing I hear. It's like my agents don't want to work hard. They don't work as hard as I do. They don't,
Yeah.
and it's
People
like,
say it
of
all the
course
time.
they don't.
Yeah.
You're the team leader. Leader. Like it's your job to lead. You can't expect the people you're leading to work as hard as you do and do all those things, or else they would be a team leader. Like that's your job. Your job is to work harder than everybody on your team because you are the leader. And I think, I think that the team leaders that I do talk to that I think embrace that kind of leadership skill. A couple things. One, they have higher standards, and so they tend not to get as many quote unquote bad agents on their team because like you have a certain type of agent that rises to the standard of the team where a lot of team leaders are just trying to bring on as many agents as they can, so they'll drop the standards of the team to meet the agent. And then the other thing is, I think, Katie, maybe this isn't true, but I think when you run a good team and you run a business that's respected, agents are going to want to work for you. And agents that want to work for you tend to work out better than just agents you try to convince to work for you.
Yeah. No, I think that if you're looking to grow your team, having your value prop and also having, like, what your agent avatar looks like is important, And one thing that I've learned over this past conference season, right, in talking to other team leaders and things like that is, like, most of them right now are realizing that, like, they need 2x or 3x the amount of agents than they needed last year, right? Like, So it's you just have to figure out like what it is that you want from your team and from your real estate business, and that's like a very introspective look that we don't take very frequently, right? Like in business planning time of year, it's normally just like, all right, we did this many, let's add 20%. That's our goal for next year, right? Like figuring out that kind of introspective look of like what you want, what that looks like, not only for you as the team and team leader, but also like each individual agent is big. And yeah, it's an interesting journey for sure.
Yeah, I think we take a lot of time spent on what do we have to do today? We got this call today, and we got this today, and we got that today, and a lot of times we let the day run us, and we don't run our day. And you got to ask yourself how much time am I spending on planning, on getting clarity, on figuring out where we want to go, so I can give people a vision to follow. Because it's hard. I mean, we get busy and we're out doing stuff. So like, when are we supposed to find the time to do what you were just talking about?
Yeah. I mean, we'll, like, calendar it out, and then we're like, like, do you just wanna go, like, grab some food instead?" You know? So, being
So
non-negotiable with that is tough.
your calendar is impressive.
Impressive
Oh, like,
impress impressive or psychotic, both words have been used to describe it.
yeah, a little bit of both. But look, you have just about every hour of your day claimed on most of your calendar throughout the week. And so, like, what's your advice behind that? Because time blocking is great, but it's only as good as you prioritize it. And so, what do you tell agents like on not just having your day blocked out, but sticking to it?
So I'm a great coach on time blocking. I'm really good at telling people how to time block. I myself, like, I don't time block per se. Like I kind of do and I kind of don't, right? So like my biggest thing for me in my calendar is my non-negotiables, right? And so that is days now that I go home, to relieve the nanny, right? And hang out with Riley and like spend time with her. That's the gym for me in the morning. So I go to the gym almost every day, right? That's specific things like masterminds that I'm committed to, right? That's team meetings, that's different things like that that are like those are in my schedule and they're blocks. Date night with Ryan, like those are blocks in my schedule that every single Friday we have date night. 2 to 4 days a week I'm home at 4 p.m., right? Like I go to the gym at 6:10 in the morning. Team meeting is at 9 a.m. So I have those in there, right? And then you have smaller things that pop up. If you are a newer agent or you're struggling with time blocking, like I would focus in on what those big rocks are because there's probably, you know, 4 to 8 hours of your week that are things that like you really should be present for, right? Whether that's work related or personal related. And then I would just try to have a very similar schedule every single day. I think too many people try to have Monday be this day and Tuesday be this day and Wednesday they do this and then Friday they do this, but then on Thursdays they come in a little later to the office and it just if you like if you have a boring and mundane schedule, it will be far easier to stick to and that's kind of my advice to most people when they're trying to create a time blocked schedule is like just do the same thing every day. We know that like it's not that hard to be successful in real estate. You just have to do more of whatever it is, content, phone calls, open houses than anyone else is willing to do. And like you'll be successful. So you just have to do that every day.
I love that. I think boring is brilliant. And, I think so many times we get caught up on the pretty stuff when actually it's the boring stuff that usually is the most important. And so, yeah, I love that about having a boring, repeatable daily day. I think too many times we get overly inspired and then we load ourselves up with these actions that we're not really able for us to do consistently on a regular basis. And just sticking to a boring daily schedule that you could do consistently, there's a ton of power in that.
Well, and I think it's Ken Posick that has, like, chaos time in his schedule, and so he has, like, I don't know if it's every day or multiple times throughout the day, but he has blocked in his schedule as chaos time, so, like, when he gets those, like, got a minutes or he has those, like, projects or he has those things that he's like, "I'd really like to research this," like, he just does it during that 30-minute block how many ever times per week in his so, like, I mean, and obviously emergencies happen and things come up, but, like, he's even got to the point where he's like, "Okay, if I have stuff that's gonna take me away from my goals and the path that I have for that day, I'm gonna do it during my chaos time."
I love that. I think that so many times we have deals going on, we've got stuff in our head that we actually don't we're not very effective in our time block time. So
Yeah.
if prospecting is our time block, but we're thinking about the buyer we've got coming into town, and we're thinking about this other thing, we're thinking about it's like homeschooling. If you do the research on homeschooling, they find that 3 focused hours, something like this. Don't quote me and don't at me in the comments. It is what it is. Okay, I'm rough idea here. When you dig into like homeschooling and some of this stuff, what you find is like 3 hours of focused work with your kid working on whatever they need to work on for that day is actually just as impactful as an entire day at school. They learn as much if they just have 3 focused hours a day. And it's like the same thing with us. If you've got a ton of stuff going on and you're time blocking prospecting, but you're not actually focused on it, you're not going to do well with it. And you do have time to do all these things if you spent focused time on doing these things. What is it? That's like the Gary Keller one thing kind of deal. You're much better off spending focused time on things instead of just going around with your day.
Well, it's the entire, like, if you're going on vacation, you seem to get all of your stuff done before you go on vacation, before you hop on the plane, right? So if, like, you
Yeah,
treat
because
it
you're
every
focused,
day,
baby. Yeah.
like that, then you would actually get your stuff done.
Well, Katie knows because all the stuff that we do together, I'm awful at getting anything done until like the day before the thing. And then after that, I'm a beast. I will get some amazing work done the day before, 2 days before we need it. And Katie's smiling right now because I know that just makes her so happy.
Is that a smile? Or is that just my non-RBF face?
I think that's a grimace. It's like a yeah. Yeah. No, but moving on, because real estate video blueprint is going to be amazing. And we are actually, I feel like we're ahead of the game on that. Like we've got some good speakers lined up. We've got our awesome venue lined up.
April 10th and 11th, Houston, Texas,
April 10th and 11th.
realestatevideoblueprint.com.
So yeah, look, if you're listening to this and you enjoy Katie, myself, maybe some of the other people that are on, Real Estate Video Blueprint is our big event that we do every year. And it's like our one big one. We do a lot of small stuff. We do a lot of Zooms. We do a lot of things. But we pour everything into making these 2 days in Houston the best possible 2 days of the year that we can. So if you like hanging out with us, definitely check out Real Estate Video Blueprint because this year I think is going to be something special.
I'm excited, and you should come because this will be my pitch. Tim basically asked me that if we could continue to make this better every year, provide more value every year, one year would I allow him for us to do this in Orlando so that he could somehow pair it with Disney and going to Disney. And I told him if he knocked it out of the park, that it could be something that we could do. And
Yeah.
so you should come so that Tim could maybe one day get his wish.
Oh, you guys have no idea. Like, I am going to put on, we. That was awful. I can't believe those words just came
Okay,
out of my
Bill
mouth.
Olson.
I know, right? What's wrong with me? We are going to put on like the best video content marketing. We're going to talk a lot about AI. We're going to do all this other stuff. I'm going to put on the best events I possibly can with Katie because one day, Katie's right, we are going to do one like in Disney World at one of the Disney World hotels. And that event is probably not going to be that great because I'm just going to be excited to be doing it there. And it's going to be way more fun. We're going to have an amazing time. It's probably just going to be a massive celebration of all things accomplished by all our people that have come to all the events and put into action and built great businesses. That's what it's going to be, Katie. In 2030, we're going to do the REVB celebration event where all these people who have come to REVB through the years and then put this stuff into action and built great businesses from it. We celebrate. That's what it is.
2030 would actually no, it should be
Oh,
2031 because then that would be like the 10th annual. But
the 10?
thinking
Okay.
about working with you for 10 years straight kind of just makes me nervous.
That's why you got to put Disney World at the end of it. You got to have that light of Mickey Mouse at the end of the tunnel.
I'm not
A
an
big
adult Disney fan
celebration.
like you are, bro.
Listen, just be open-minded to it. We'll
Don't
convert
Phil
you.
Jones me.
Oh, man. I feel like we lost half the audience, but that's fine. That's fine. It's not fine because I need to connect with and love my audience the way I love my spouse. So, Katie, favorite quotes. What do you got?
Favorite quote?
Yeah.
Like,
I totally caught you off
I
guard.
know.
What do you like?
I know.
You know?
I,
Rafe said I can prepare people with these questions, but I like this thing where you have to think about it and you
I
gotta
know,
gotta
I know.
really
I'm not
dig
very
deep for it.
profound. We were joking around earlier about, like, reading. I'll give you one that I heard last week since it's, like, high on my
Yeah.
mind, top of mind. Clearly, I'm a very intelligent person. And it's not Hormozy's quote, but it's something that he said, and it was, "A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor."
Yes.
A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, and that was something that resonated with me, especially in today's world and today's market and life.
I love it. I think there's agents that are excited about a challenging market because they know it's a time for them to improve. They know it's a time for them to get better and build something special. And so I think that's the kind of mindset that we should take going into the rougher seas is that
Yeah.
we're going to become better sailors. All right, best place for people to find you. How do they connect?
Instagram, move me to Texas, MOVEMETOTX.
You know what I love, which I know you love too, is the fact that it's actually harder to find you on Instagram because since Katie has had this Move Me to TX handle, there are just so many Move Me Twos now. There's like a Move Me to wherever, and Katie, I appreciate you starting that wonderful trend.
You're very welcome, Tim.
So look, that's it. You got anything else? Like if you had one thing, you got a bunch of agents listening to this thing that have been putting up with listening to my
6
podcast for this
agents,
long. Six
53 minutes
agents.
in.
Yep. What would be the one thing you'd want to leave them with?
Consistency.
Profound.
Yeah, that's all I've got. No, being consistent.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm not
All
I'm
right.
not
Oh,
knocking it.
you were
That
I thought
is
you were
yeah.
making fun of me. I was like, I can expand on that more, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
No, I had our one of our agents I was working with. I said she's got to get some affirmations going because she's not consistent, and I think affirmations and speaking it out loud every morning is something to help build consistency. And the one that she repeats in her affirmations is "I am disciplined and consistent," because I think that is the thing. Like if we can be disciplined and consistent, there's not much we can't do.
One of my affirmations is I am disciplined and follow my schedule.
Love it, love it, beautiful. So you have affirmations.
I do.
Yeah. See, this is the thing. The hokey stuff, it works.
One of
It
them's like,
works.
I
Kate,
am kind to Tim Macy.
yeah, you have to remind yourself of
Yeah.
that every day. But listen, I'm telling you though, because there is a good amount of the audience that's listening to this that doesn't do affirmations every morning. And here's the deal: Katie Day is about as anti foo whatever stuff there is, right? Like you just aren't. You are a realist. You are a straight to the point. You are a no BS person. And if Katie Day can do the awkward thing of affirmations, it's because they work. I promise you, if you think they're weird and they're hokey, it is weird and hokey, but it works. And so, yeah, I would love to see more of our audience build out some great affirmations and be consistent with them throughout the year.
Love it.
All right, y'all. Thanks for hopping on, Katie. I really appreciate your time. I know you're very busy. And yeah, thanks for being on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We'll see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.